Hello, my name's Brady, and we're back with another React video. I guess we're going to be doing Valentine's Day stuff at the end of February. Like, at least it's still February, but I think on Valentine's Day I did like a GeoGuessr video or something, which that doesn't make sense. I don't know what I did there. I'm so bad at keeping my content on theme, unless it's Christmas. I was on point with Christmas. We got lots of Christmas videos done. But with this one, I kind of dropped the ball. But it's still February, so I thought we're going to do back-to-back overly sarcastic productions where they did their videos on Valentine's. Not even Valentine's Day. They did History's Best Couples as a Valentine's Day special, which I think is just as good. And this should be fun. I enjoyed the last one. It was thought-provoking and I think led to some decent conversation. I hope this one does too. So if you want to watch the previous one, it's the video before this one. If you are here for this one specifically, let's get it started.
History has a very weird way of playing out. In the 3rd century AD, a Christian saint named Valentinus was martyred for helping Romans escape religious persecution, and nowadays we choose to mark the occasion by buying flowers and procuring fancy dinner reservations by right of conquest. There's just something so romantic about dropkicking a party of two along your quest for a candlelit feast. But
yeah, it's an interesting conversation talking about how holidays become commercialized. With the Christmas stuff, I learned about how Santa and Christmas became more commercialized. And a big part of that was the Coca-Cola company. They used him as a marketing tool. Why is Valentine's Day the way it is right now? I can't really attribute it to just one thing because it's a number of factors that formed what it is now. A big part of it was Hallmark. I have read a little bit about this. I don't know a ton. There are definitely more factors that built it into what it is now, but a big part was the Hallmark company doing some darn good marketing and being able to sell Valentine's cards. I think it was kind of genius. And I guess it just snowballed into what it is now.
But even before our modern era of professing love through culinary bloodsport, couples throughout history have had interesting and varied ways of showing affection, which is my polite way of saying unhealthy at best and deeply self-destructive at worst.
Oof.
My friends, we are in for a ride.
But who's
today.
the guy in the wig?
Now,
Which wigged guy is that?
So as we know well, or in some cases just discovered,
big ups to the corporations to figure out they can fly a pride flag for a month without tanking their stocks.
In the past decade, love comes in many forms and always has. And we know this for a fact because people specifically wrote about it. Sing muse of the thirst of Peleus' son Achilles. And as soon as Greek culture invented...
And that was talked about in the previous one. Like I said, if you want to check out the previous one, of course, you could check out my video or you could check out theirs. I always put the links to the original video in the description box below. But yeah, it was a very interesting conversation about representation of LGBTQ plus people in history. And they're often underrepresented, partly because historians haven't historically recognized them, partly because it's hard to verify. Often people in those to call it a community back then may not represent it exactly right, but people like that would have often been pushed a little bit underground. They would have been more secretive of it, making it even harder. History is already kind of hard as it is, so sometimes it's difficult. I'm not just making excuses for people because sometimes things are just flat out overlooked, but I think we can appreciate the task of proving something that maybe somebody at the time didn't want us to know.
First-person poetry, it also invented gay first-person poetry. Now,
Sick.
This was going to be the part where I begin discussing the lyric poet Sappho of Lesbos, but as I did my research, I realized she's actually way too interesting for me to just breeze through in this hijinks roundup. So, your girl is getting promoted to a future History Makers video, and I'll just skip ahead to the next item on my list, which is dunking on Caesar. We usually think of Caesar as the guy who conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon, became dictator for life, and then very swiftly died, but his personal life was arguably just as bonkers as his political career. I like to joke about the sharp lines of old Cheekbones McGee, but Caesar's friends and enemies alike had to concede that the man was handsome, and his looks were most definitely not going to waste because Julius was a prolific flirt, and he used that as fuel for his politics.
That's kind of fun. As somebody who's not very good with the whole Roman history thing, it's fun to learn a little bit more about his personality, because I get, when I have learned a little bit about him, I learned more about the military figure, the public figure. I haven't learned as much about the private figure, and that's what people have increasingly become more and more interested in over time. History has so often been written in ways that prioritize politics, that prioritize the public figure sense of them, and I love learning more about the private figure. So to learn that he was a cheeky flirt, I think that adds a degree of likability to him, or relatability even though I'm not the most flirtatious person, it makes him feel more like a person.
In Rome, being a man of great manliness could be demonstrated by doing the sex, and that in turn reflected well on their political abilities.
Good sex,
it's
brah.
You know what? No, I don't think I'll elaborate on that. So
Okay.
in addition to his 3 successive wives, Cornelia, who died in 69 BC, nice, Pompeia, whom he divorced after a political scandal, and Calpurnia, who
That shouldn't
outlived
have been
him,
that
Caesar
funny.
slept with every well-to-do woman he could, including and not limited to the wives of Pompey Magnus and Marcus Crassus, who were his political partners in the first triumvirate. In Rome, extramarital affairs weren't particularly rare or even seen as wrong, but what
I don't know that much about his killing, like his assassination or anything like that. Like, I've read the Shakespeare play, but like overall, I don't know that much about the historic Caesar in that context. But I get why some people might have conspired to kill him in that case. I don't know. It's Rome. Maybe they view it a little less severely. I don't know. But if he's doing that sort of stuff, like I'm not saying he deserves to get stabbed, but like I'm not surprised if somebody doing that ends up getting stabbed.
What sets Caesar apart is his thoroughness. For one brutally illustrative example, when the Senate was debating in the wake of the thwarted Catiline conspiracy in 63 BC, Caesar received a letter while in the middle of a speech. Cato the Younger suspected the note was some evidence of Caesar's involvement in the plot and demanded that it be read out loud. Caesar, to his credit, really tried to get Cato to back down, but Cato insisted, so Caesar began reading an astonishingly inappropriate and uncomfortably descriptive love letter from Cato's own half-sister.
Oh, what a jerk.
Missive may well have been mortifying for Cato to read in a vacuum, but imagine the poor man's misery to hear the entire Senate just laughing at him about it. Suffice to say, he never lived it down, and neither did the young Marcus Brutus, because Servilia was also his mother.
Oh, and I know Brutus. Okay, here we go. Like I knew there were political elements into his assassination, but I couldn't help but think that there had to be some sexy stuff that had to build into that. Okay, there we go.
Caesar, however, was not immune from ridicule, because the young Julius once served as ambassador to the Bithynian king Nicomedes IV, and as soon as he returns to Rome, the rumor mill spun into action. The mockery he endured for getting frisky with a foreign king was so intense that Caesar's own legions sang saucy tunes about it decades after the fact. And this actually brings up an interesting angle of Roman sexuality, because in Rome as in Greece, the line between what we call straight and gay was thin to non-existent. So if casual bisexuality was the norm, why all the jokes at Caesar's expense? Well, the thing with Rome is that everything has a power dynamic, so it was fine to be gay, but only if you were the top. Which seems extremely arbitrary, but knowing the Romans, that...
Like, I get that. They're more patriarchal, I'm sure, and I guess to be on the top would make you the more manly of the two. To be on the bottom would be a more womanly position. So, like, it's not like I think it's right, but like I see what they're thinking there, just to try to put myself in their heads. And I guess you need something to make fun of your political enemies for, so maybe it's like a certain degree of manufactured outrage or something like that. I don't know.
That still somehow makes complete sense. So although Caesar was better known for his womanizing, the episode on the receiving end of Nicomedes earned Caesar the nickname Every Woman's Man and Every Man's Woman. And that's the love life of Julius Caesar, who banged his way through
cool
Rome,
nickname.
Gaul, Anatolia, North
that'd be
Africa,
pretty cool.
and Egypt. Heck, I haven't even mentioned Cleopatra, but I'm out of time. Suffice to say, the only thing Caesar couldn't smash was Parthia. Am I right, lads?
I'm sure that's funnier for Roman
dumb,
historians.
But not untrue. Anyway, If Caesar was an example of how to build a political career on pure thirst, this story from medieval China shows how lust can be the undoing of not just one ruler,
China.
but an entire empire. This tale is immortalized in Bai Zhiyi's poem, The Song of Everlasting Sorrow, so you know right off the bat this one's gonna go great. But let's start with the history and hop into the Tang Dynasty during the reign of Emperor Xuanzong. During the early part of his reign, the emperor is rightly credited with improving foreign trade relations along the Silk Road and at sea, reforming the military to become a professional force instead of a conscript army, and generously subsidizing literature and artistry. But apparently, working one's butt off for a decade and a half to lift China into a golden age of prosperity and culture can get a bit tiring. So starting in 734, the emperor began delegating more responsibilities to his wife, the empress. She appointed Li Linfu as chancellor, and when she died 3 years later, Li found himself as the acting head of state. So, what do you do when you need to keep an emperor entertained for basically the rest of his life? You import a palace full of women. But of those 3,000 odd concubines, the emperor only had eyes for one person, his son's wife. That's a yikes. Nevertheless,
oh no, that's so bad. Oh god, that's. I mean, like, when you can have anyone you want, I guess he might be thinking like, okay, I can have anybody I want, but so wait, what can I not have? That's what I want. Because when you can have anything, oh god, like, that's my best attempt to get into somebody's head like that. Because, like, really, if you can have anybody you want, more or less, I'm sure that gets boring. So you look to what's more exciting. Oh god, please. Don't do that.
This young Yuhuan was branch transferred from wife of the prince to imperial consort, and the emperor doted on her incessantly, granting what began as small requests but steadily ballooned into appointing her entire extended family to high positions in government and the military. While the young family slid comfortably into profitable posts they proceeded to completely neglect, Li Linfu was busy appointing foreign loyalists to beef up his power base. For you political corruption stands in the audience, the former is nepotism while the latter would be cronyism, but both of them are still very bad. And even worse was the development that these two camps did not like each other.
Seems
this
unwise.
came crashing down in 755 when the foreign-born general An Lushan escalated a local spat with the Yang family into a full rebellion against the emperor. And you thought this was a love story? Ha!
I mean,
you fool! The real sorrow here is the decline of good governance. An Lushan's rebellion didn't quite work out how he wanted, as he died just 2 years in, but it would ravage China for another several years, and this is where our lovers enter into the picture again. The emperor and Lady Yang were forced to flee the palace by the rebelling army, and the Tang soldiers complained that this was all Lady Yang's fault, which...
But what about the son? I want to know how did he feel about this whole thing? Like, we can't just ignore his feelings. Like, was he pissed off? Was he like, well, it might be worth it in the end? Like, I get this. I mean, I'm going to be the big guy in charge eventually, right?
And they forced her to kill herself. Technically, the emperor was consulted beforehand, but clearly in a, hey, just so you know, we are doing this kind of way, as opposed to asking permission. So Lady Yang died, and the emperor was heartbroken, so he abdicated to his son, who spent the rest of his reign fighting the rebellion.
That guy.
This marks the second worst thing Xuanzong ever did to his son, aside from, you know, the inciting incident. As I mentioned at the start, the story is most famously recounted in
That makes me sad. Like, I mean, like, come on. What a dick. Like, seriously. Like, oh, God, this isn't one of those kind of stories that I get a little flustered because it's, like, an uncomfortable subject, and that's why I'm, like, struggling to find my words right now.
Poetry, but weirdly, it's set all the way back in the Han Dynasty. In that version of the story, the systemic corruption is glossed over, and Lady Yang dies to motivate the emperor to focus on winning his battle. And after the victory, everyone is just sad for 100 lines, without stopping to note that the couple brought this all on themselves. It would seem the poet was uninterested in the long-term consequences of severe government neglect, which is precisely why I don't write love stories. Okay, now that we've witnessed a debacle,
Who's
let's
the guy
take a look
in the
at
wig?
a tragedy. We all know that arranged political marriages were rarely fun for anyone involved, but nothing tops the marriage of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette.
Okay, and because I saw the picture of him in the thumbnail, and I was like, that could be literally any person who wears a wig during that time, so I wasn't sure. This is the obvious one. Okay, this makes a whole lot of sense.
The first two tales in this video were not what I would consider fun, but this story is just awful everything. So after the 7 Years' War shuffled the diplomatic map of Europe, France and Austria found themselves needing to forge an alliance, so the sitting royals arranged for Princess Marie to marry into the French monarchy via Dauphin Louis. The pairing was an immediate disaster, as a firework display on their wedding night blew over from stiff wind and caused the crowd, whom the rockets were now firing into, to panic and stampede, killing anywhere from a couple hundred to a few thousand people. The couple...
I haven't heard that part of the story. Like, that's one that I didn't know that much about. Like, I've learned a little bit about, like, the French Revolution and stuff like that, but that particular incident is actually new to me. That's fun. It's not fun, but it's interesting.
People went out of their way to financially compensate families affected by the tragedy, but man, that is a rough start, and it did not get better. Thing is, neither Louis nor Marie wanted anything to do with this situation. When he was born, his grandfather, Louis XV, was still king, and his older brother was in line for the throne. By 1774, his brother, father, and grandfather died, leaving this poor 20-year-old as King Louis XVI, when the shy, indecisive homebody would have been much happier just reading and locksmithing. Marie, by contrast, was social, showy, and expensive, having a taste for fine clothes, sprawling gardens, and chocolate. She started every day with a cup of hot chocolate and whipped cream, which is a powerful morning routine. Well, morning is a stretch, because she woke up around noon after spending every night on the town. So there was a pretty clear disconnect between the pair, and the conspicuous lack of a child fueled 7 years of gossip since their marriage in 1770. On top of the garden variety complaints that anything and everything was her fault because she was an icky, gross foreigner who went to parties. And, of course, rumors of Marie's infidelity circulated from the start, but come on, who did they think she was? Caesar?
This is one of those things, like, it's hard to tell to what degree it was, like, because she was foreign or because she was, like, a beautiful woman. It's definitely, like, a mix of the two, why she got so much hate for being potentially promiscuous, but like it's never like nearly like half as bad as they made it sound, because you see some of like the political cartoons and stuff at the time, and it's like it's ridiculous, and they make fun of Louis as well, but it's not nearly as harsh. Even when it comes to them being executed, Louis, he gets kind of drowned out and disrespected, but he gets his day to kind of like get his head chopped off with a little bit of dignity, I guess. I don't know. It felt like there was a little bit more dignity behind him, but like they straight up like brutalized Marie, and like that was weird to me. Like trying to get into the minds of ordinary people, it makes me think, like, what factor really caused that to be far more brutal? Is it the fact that the French Revolution just that just represents the brutality of the revolution at the time? It was just picking up more between the execution of Louis and the execution of Marie. I find it difficult to exactly put my finger on, because there's probably a number of reasons and not everybody's the same. So yeah.
Roasted. Now, the lack of an heir could have been for a lot of reasons, and remains the subject of far too much speculation. Contemporary accusations that Louis suffered from PP too small were a result of the perceived connection between weak political performance and insufficient manliness. Yeah. But if the uncomfortably thorough court records on the subject are anything to go by, Louis was more likely afflicted with, ouch, PP too big. Yep. This was not made better by the fact that the king and queen slept in separate rooms connected by a very public corridor that passed right in front of the royal court, who would have known exactly what Louis was up to at that hour of the evening. 7 years into this nightmare, the Queen of Austria sent Marie's brother to give Louis the pep talk and/or surgery he needed to begin having children with Marie. Cool.
And it worked. Like, I didn't actually understand. Like, I knew he had like a problem with his thing, and it like hurt to be aroused. I didn't know it was because it was like PP too big. I didn't know that part. I guess I never looked too deep into what the affliction actually meant, but I did hear about him getting like a surgery, and then after that, like, popped out children. So clearly something worked out there. But yeah, the fact that he wasn't able, because that's like the first rule of being a king, you got to produce an heir. Because if you don't produce an heir, that is like chaos in the future. If something goes down and you don't have an heir, that opens the door for political chaos and stuff. So produce an heir. Like modern monarchies, it doesn't really. It's not even a great example because the English monarch, like the British and whatever, they are totally structured differently from how like an absolute monarch like in France would have been. But like you think of the Queen, she's got plenty of options at this point. She didn't really have an issue there. So in a sense, she succeeded in the first rule of monarchy: have BBs.
Awesome, just fantastic. I hate everything about this.
Yeah, this one's not that romantic.
This poor library ace live his life. Sickos. Anyway, as if the situation couldn't get worse, then the French Revolution happened.
Yeah.
With colossal state
Choppy,
debt
choppy.
and factionalism in the court, Louis was beset by interlocking problems that even a much more capable monarch would crumble under. One thing leads to another, I am not getting into it, and soon Louis was public enemy number 1. 2. People still hated Marie Antoinette more. And for what it's worth, the let them eat cake business was a misattribution from one of 2 earlier sources. In 1792, the royals attempted to sneak out to Austria and lead an army in to reinstate the authority.
Yeah, the let them eat cake thing was definitely wrong, but it kind of represents a certain out-of-touchedness with her and Louis that undoubtedly did exist. They truly did not empathize nearly enough with what the people were going through, considering how lavish their lifestyle was.
Of the monarchy, but it failed, allegedly because Marie's perfume was so strong it gave them away. The monarchs were tried for treason, which, to be fair, yeah, that is kind of treason, and they both met their ends at the guillotine the next year. These 2 definitely were not saints, but man, did history do them dirty. What a mess.
Yeah.
Though we've been talking about the joyful subject of love, I would still like the record to show that I distinctly did not have fun today, so I'm firmly marking these tales as blurst. But that aside, what can we learn from
There was no happy love stories
tough,
here.
But let me try to spin this. First, don't have affairs. You never know when your mistress's son might just stab you. Second, maintain a healthy work-life balance, and while you're at it, maybe don't steal your child's spouse. And third, recognize when a pairing is just not good for anyone. Truly, every detail I learned while researching this video made me wish I had never started, and I'm frankly shocked that our disaster species was ever allowed to make it this far. Thank you for watching. Researching this video forced me to actually Google search the phrase Louis XVI penis, and no amount of therapy can make that unhappen. I now consider myself burdened with forbidden knowledge and will very much need a year of psychological cleansing before I attempt this again for next Valentine's Day.
Sick.
Special thanks to the patrons for subsidizing my suffering, and I will see you all in the next video.
Okay, that one was... I think I like this one more than the last one. The last one was fun. This one, it felt inherently... Like, the other one had a lot of tragedy, too. Like, there's really no, like, happy endings in history, because in the end, everybody dies. So, like, that's... The last part of every biography you read is like how a person dies, so like that's kind of a thing about history, so I can't exactly expect a happy ending, but this one felt especially bad. But I think I enjoyed it more. I just enjoyed the subjects more, and got a little bit of China in there. I don't get to learn about China very often, so that's always fun. So thank you guys for watching. If there are any other videos from them you want me to check out, any more themed videos, like for holidays coming up, maybe I'll do them, maybe I won't. I probably won't, but you can suggest them anyway. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow with another video.